Good afternoon, Wednesday afternoon, everybody. Thanks for checking in to our latest TDR Trade to Black podcast. I'm your host, Shad Dales. Keep this week going with some big time guests. Today, we are going to bring on Florida Senator Joe Gruters in just a moment to talk about Amendment 3, among other things. A lot of election talk, and why not? Because we're less than 2 weeks away. And what the impact, if Amendment 3 were to pass, what this would do for the overall cannabis space, not only in the state of Florida, but across the country. So without further ado, let's jump into it. And first, welcome in TDR co-host Anthony Varell. Happy Wednesday. This should be a good one.
Yeah, it's one. It's way long in the making. It's great to have Senator Gruters on. Obviously, Florida is front and center. Amendment 3 is probably the most important thing going on in the cannabis space right now, and it's crunch time, especially with early voting in Florida opening up this week.
Yeah. So with that, let's welcome in Florida Senator Joe Gruters. Good to see you. How are things?
Hey, things are great. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, I appreciate you having taking the time to join us. But you're based where? In Sarasota, you were saying before we went live here?
Yeah, Sarasota, right in the storm, literally Milton went right over, proper Sarasota. So we got hit pretty hard, and we're recovering as much as we can.
How much inches of rain did you guys end up getting, and how strong were the winds?
Well, what's interesting is we've been flooded 3 times over the course of the last 6 months. We got hit by Debbie, which was almost like a no-name storm, and that flooded about 850 homes, not on the coast, but actually about a mile in from the coast in some of these older neighborhoods. They had 10 feet of water in some of these neighborhoods for days. And then we got hit by Helene, and Helene was the first storm that was 200 miles off the coast, but it really did a lot of damage all the way up the coast of Florida. And basically, if you had an older home, the storm surge picked up. And if you're on one of those barrier islands, you likely saw water in your house. And then just recently with Milton, the storm surge came again. And the homes that were hit about 8 weeks ago were hit again a week and a half ago. And then, of course, the commercial properties, St. Armand Circle, every first floor commercial space is basically wiped out. They're having to start from scratch. It's there's a lot of issues, and you don't always see it, but the beaches are open. So if you're planning on coming to Sarasota, we need as many tourists as we can.
There you go.
So come on down and spend your money.
When does hurricane season usually end in Florida? Is it November?
Yes, we're a couple of weeks away. Yeah, November.
There you go. Well, look, we're less than 2 weeks away from November 5th, the big U.S. federal election. A lot of talk going on. A lot of important initiatives are going to be, talked about, and a lot of people going to the vote. Cannabis, obviously, this is what we cover in the business side, and there's going to be a big one regarding Amendment 3, and if adult use recreational cannabis will indeed pass within the state of Florida. So you have been a big backer in this. So my first question is why? Why do you feel this is important for adult use cannabis to pass within the state of Florida?
Well, first and foremost, it's all about safety. And if the question I always ask everybody that I go and speak in front of is, do you know somebody that consumes marijuana? And usually people raise their hand. Then I say, out of the people that you know that use or consume marijuana, how many people use the medical ID card? And in the state of Florida, we have about 850,000 people that utilize the medical marijuana program. And then we have about 2 million people that consume marijuana, and they buy their products through illicit markets.
Right.
And the problem when you buy it through the illicit markets is the substances that they're buying could be adulterated, and they could be putting stuff that gets them sick or even could lead to death at the end of the day. So for me, if you believe like I believe, since I was in high school, college, friends today, if you want to have access and if you want to consume marijuana, there's a market for you and you can go buy it. My whole thing is let's make it so it's safe. Let's regulate it. This is not the first product I've tried to regulate. I've regulated Kratom. I spent 6 months 6 years trying to ban public smoking, and ultimately we got it to ban public smoking on beaches. But listen, it's all about safety. That's number one. Number two, we had 16,000 people arrested last year for minor possession of marijuana. And so if you don't want to see your friends get sick by buying some random product from the illicit market, they could have a real bad day if they get pulled over and they get searched, and all of a sudden they end up going to jail for this minor possession of marijuana. And certainly if that happens, it's much harder to get a job, much harder to get housing. And for what? Almost everybody agrees that we should decriminalize this product. And number three, listen, we live in Florida. We have Governor Ron DeSantis. He's a super conservative. I have conservative colleagues in the Senate and colleagues in the House. And I know that when we pass this, we will be able to put up the proper guardrails to make sure that we do this right. We will be able to control the time, place, and manner that people do this. I'm, for one, would love to see, and I've already drafted a couple of bills on this, but I'd love to see a zero public consumption of marijuana out in the public, number one. Number two, obviously, strengthen laws in terms of having a zero tolerance policy when it comes to driving. We could do everything the right way. When you look at the states that, there's 24 states in the District of Columbia that have already passed adult recreational use. And when you look at some of the states that did it wrong, look at California, Colorado, New York, they all have liberal governors. That's the big difference. Here in Florida, conservatives. And if you follow the Arizona, Missouri, Ohio models, some of the states that have gone lately, all conservative governors, conservative legislatures, and as a result, they did it the right way. We will do it the Florida way. I think we'll do it the best out of any of them. But those are probably my top three reasons. But number one, it's safety to access. Everybody has access now. There's no reason why anybody should be buying this on the illicit market where they could get the harmful substances accidentally consumed.
Absolutely. So you had mentioned guardrails, and I mean, that presupposes that Amendment 3 does pass on November 5th. For those that don't know, and I mean, it is a little bit murky. I know that we have 6 months from passing to implementation. What does that process look like within that 6 months of, let's say, erecting those guardrails and furthering the language in the bill? And how much influence can Governor DeSantis actually have, as well as the Florida legislature, for augmenting the bill to a certain degree to make it suitable for implementation and creating those guardrails?
Well, that's the $1 million question. There are some that says we can't regulate it, but every constitutional amendment in Florida that's ever been passed has an implementation bill. And then the constitutional amendment can only be a single subject in Florida. So the single subject in Florida is adult recreational use marijuana. We're going to come over the top. We will put together a bill, and we'll put everything that we want to see in that bill, and we'll make sure that passes. And they will be heavy-handed. I'm the only Republican out of, I think, 113 Republicans in the legislature that have come out in support of this bill. Obviously, we have a governor who dislikes this, probably for a variety of personal reasons. But that doesn't mean that
you think that's what it is. You think that's what it is? Personal reasons. You think that's what it is? It's personal reasons.
Listen, it's hard to say why. In everybody falls in line. This is like the military. He's the general. People don't like to disrupt the status quo. And there's a lot of markets that could be impacted as a result of this passing. For number one, alcohol. Number two, hemp. And those markets stand to lose, because I think that you'll see some of that market share continue to shift over to the now legal recreational marijuana market.
Fair point.
Definitely. And keying in on hemp, I mean, Governor DeSantis has been he's keyed in on certain talking points. One of them has been public consumption, which you've came out and said, well, we'll create these guardrails, we'll curb public consumption to near zero once this is ready for implementation, which I think a lot of Floridians believe. One thing that Governor DeSantis has not acknowledged is that there is a flourishing hemp market in the state of Florida right now that contributes to public consumption, that he vetoed a bill that would have curbed hemp products in the state of Florida. Within the Florida legislature, like what's the rhetoric around that? Because as much as I like Governor DeSantis, I voted for him, I support him, regardless of his stance on this amendment. It seems like it's not that he wants his cake and eat it too. He seems to just be very contradictory in his beliefs, as cannabis and hemp are the same thing, yet he's got different beliefs publicly for both substances.
Yeah, I mean, great point. And the hemp market is all the commercials that you're seeing about the dangers and everything else. That's what we're getting from the hemp market.
Correct.
Literally 40 senators, Republicans and Democrats, 0 votes against, 40 senators for. This was Ashley Moody's, like, her top priority because it's unregulated. You have a whole system that's unregulated. People may be thinking to themselves right now, what are all these shops with the marijuana leaves and THC and CBD and all this stuff? That's the hemp market, right? It's unregulated. And as a result, some of these are selling in gas stations, and they are marketing to the younger generation under 21. That's what we were trying to stop. It was near unanimous. He vetoed it. It was incredibly unfortunate. But and you also mentioned the regulation again. But let me tell you one other thing as a senator. Like, I'm a sitting senator right now. We have broad police powers in the state constitution that allows us to regulate based on the health, safety, and welfare of the well-being of everybody in Florida. That's what gives us the power. That's why we're going to go and listen. I have no doubt, as a matter of fact, because it's 113-1 on this issue, my guess is we're going to have probably some of the harshest implementation laws that comes out when this first wave passes in the first 6 months. And then over time, I think we'll get to a more reasonable place. But we're going to do this the Florida way. I think at the end, I've asked if I could run the implementation bill, but I will be a senior over in the Senate this year. And so we'll see what happens.
Do you foresee any sort of further curbing of the hemp market post-election once Amendment 3 passes in the state of Florida, and Governor DeSantis kind of doing a 360 on that and revisiting a bill to?
I've heard a couple things, but you don't know. I mean, why would he veto it? We had a great bill last time. It takes care of all the problems that they're complaining about. And the big difference between the hemp market and the recreational market right now in Florida, the medical marijuana industry that's licensed, they're selling products right now that's so heavily regulated from the standpoint of, we don't sell gummies. I think they call them gels. They're individually wrapped. They're colorless. They don't have wild names like Cocoa Puffs and Fruit Loops and all this stuff. And and you walk into a dispensary and you see no products. Everything's in the back. You can't see anything. And that's the difference. If you go into a dispensary today, that's what I think you'll see in the recreational market moving forward. But you're going to see a regulated market that works, that keeps things safe, versus this unregulated hemp market, which the governor vetoed, unfortunately, but they're selling all types of wild stuff. And yes, I personally hope that they revisit it. And like I said, it was a 40-0 vote in the Senate, and I think 115-5 or something in the House.
Okay.
Senator Gruters, do you talk to Governor DeSantis all that much?
No, you got to remember, I was just like I was the only guy for the Amendment 3 on the Republican side. For a year, I was by myself in supporting the former President Donald J. Trump in the primary against Governor DeSantis. And this is, in talk about, we have President Trump support on this. And this is one of the few issues ever you're going to see the leaders of both political parties where they both have come out in support of this. They both think, the rescheduling, I think, is going to happen at some point. But basically, you have the Florida Libertarian Party, the Florida Democrat Party of super conservatives like Donald Trump, myself in the state Senate, conservative Sheriff Gordon Smith, and lots of others. So this is a true bipartisan movement. We've consistently been polling in the 65, 66, 67%. There are some outliers that have us below 60, but if you take those undecideds, put them back in, at least a portion of them, we basically are passing in every poll. But this is going to be a fight till the end, because I know that the other side is doing everything they possibly can. And the governor, he is spending tax dollars. We still live in a democracy, but he is literally spending tax dollars with some of these PSA ads to try to defeat this amendment. And for me, even if I agree with the issue, like I agree with the governor on Amendment 4, but I still don't think we should use tax dollars on propaganda and we should never use tax dollars on any type of political campaigns like this. And so, to me, it's a mistake.
No. Governor DeSantis has absolutely been on the offensive this week. I've seen him on Laura Ingraham. I've seen him on Fox and Friends. He is doing the media circuit, and it's not endorsing Trump. It's not talking about the party. It's 3 and 4 on the ballot in Florida. Does it surprise you that Governor DeSantis is taking this stance as it relates to Amendment 3? Because he was a champion for the medical program with implementing it in the state of Florida. He brought online smokable flower in 2019 when Florida was just a low-dose market. To see his sentiment shift and just the animosity that he has towards the amendment and towards adult use in the state of Florida, for me, it was kind of a surprise. I wasn't expecting the vitriol and just the sheer brute force that he's taken against 3.
Well, it's just like the conservative Sheriff Gordon Smith when he says he thinks Ron DeSantis is the best governor Florida's ever had. He just disagrees with him on this particular issue, and he thinks the governor's making a mistake on this, just like I do. And so it's listen, we're not always going to agree. I don't know why he's has taken it out on Amendment 3, but listen, at the end of the day, he needs to win. I think he's put his political future on the line. I think he needs to win 3 and 4, or at least one of the two. And I think that he's trying to do whatever he can to win one or the other.
Yeah. Well, we're going to find out relatively soon. That's for sure. Well, there's been a lot of misinformation with some of these ads about, a lot of the smell being in public areas with a lot of these campaign ads that have been running around, but that's far from the truth. You actually were saying, quote, Florida will do marijuana legalization the right way. So you've got a platform here. You want to basically explain what you meant by that and how there has been some misinformation pertaining to those ads?
Well, listen, they say this, they talk about all types of things in the ads. They talk about having a monopoly system. This is one company, which is completely bogus, because when you think about the monopoly argument, we have 25 companies that are licensed that could have dispensaries right now. We have another 22 that are on the governor's desk. So that's 47. Just with the 25 that are active that are selling right now, there's more medical dispensary companies than there are grocery stores chains in the state of Florida, right? Yeah. And so it's certainly not a monopoly. And we created those rules. The legislature did. We're going to open up for more. People talk about the homegrown issue in some of these ads. I'll be the first guy to make sure that we add homegrow in. I've talked to the supporters of Amendment 3. They think it's a complementary type product, and they see no competition at the end because they're going to end up selling seeds and everything else to these people. And so the home grow issue is a non-issue. I think I personally am in favor of it. So I hope that we can include that in the implementation bill. And certainly the smell, we could go out and you could say, okay, and the governor said this last night on a call. He was talking about, let's just say you can regulate it, right? He says that. And then he says, let's say they ban smoking. Well, the cops aren't going to go arrest people, and they're not going to bother with it. That's not right. We have to give the law enforcement the tools that they need to do their job. And just like it's a $500 fine if you park in a handicap spot, it should be true for marijuana. If you create a deterrent, people won't do it. That's the bottom line. We could do this the right way. We can make sure the rights of everybody else are protected, and we can make sure that the rights of the people who want to consume this product without having to go through the medical system, which they're still going to be able to do at the end of the day once this passes. But we want to get rid of the illicit markets. I mean, everything goes back to safety.
100%.
And trying to make sure those people, the 2 million people that access the illicit markets right now, have a place to go and make sure that they buy a product that's regulated and we do it the right way.
Absolutely. And we saw Ohio pass adult use last year, implemented this year, still has a ways to go with actually fully implementing the adult use regulations in the state. However, myself and a couple of political pundits that I've spoken to, they believe that Ohio has kind of shifted the political calculus as it relates to cannabis within the GOP and the Republican Party, really kind of waking up some people to be like, all right, well, cannabis is not the bad guy. It's not the boogeyman. States aren't going to turn into California. No offense to any Californians that might be watching the stream, but that's just not going to happen. Do you think that Amendment 3 passing in the state of Florida changes the political calculus in the Southeast and within the party to like, oh, Florida is going adult use on cannabis? Maybe it's time to kind of have that sentiment shift and start to see places like South Carolina, Georgia, the neighboring states on the panhandle start to really get their act together and start to change through reform?
Well, again, the resistance comes from all the other markets that stand to lose right now. And so once you get over that hurdle and people see that the sky is not going to crash, that teen use studies have shown that teen use goes down because there's less illicit markets to buy from. The fact that a lot of the opioid use and domestic violence also goes down as a result of opening up these regulated markets. It's I think that the cumulative impact that this will have on Florida, yes, once people realize that we could do this the right way, I think a lot more of my colleagues will buy in, and it will become a non-issue. Listen, we're dealing with a government that doesn't always tell the truth, and certainly opening up these markets like the 24 states and the District of Columbia already has opened a lot of people's eyes. But here in Florida, I'm very confident that the conservative governor and the conservative legislature that we have will do this the right way.
Well,
how has the sentiment been? Oh, go ahead, Sean.
22 million people in the state of Florida right now, right? And then you've got what, another 120 million tourists annually within the state. That's big numbers to say the least. Like, what kind of tax revenue dollars do you think this could generate?
Well, the Revenue Estimating Conference already says anywhere between 150 and 400 million recurring a year. And certainly, that will be up to, again, you can't put that where that money is going to go in the constitutional amendment because it has to be a single issue. But what you can do is you could say, listen, we can put it towards law enforcement to make sure that they have every tool available so they can do their job the right way. Yeah. We could give it more to education. But Florida is one of the few states that really runs a tight ship. We have almost $18 billion surplus rainy day fund. We balance our budget. We fully fund. We've been funding at the very highest levels our public schools, our universities, even our private schools through school choice. Every single student in the state now has the ability to choose whatever school they want to go to. It's an amazing thing. So we've invested a lot. And I truly believe that, again, the conservative government that we have here in Florida will spend that money efficiently and effectively at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think there's any risk that even if the people do overwhelmingly vote for it, and Amendment 3 passes, let's say 66%, 67%, that the legislature or the governor's office try to put some sort of onerous clamps on this bill, or not this bill, but on this amendment once it comes to, let's say, the implementation language?
That's going to be there's going to be another battle after it passes, and it will be in the legislature. And but then, listen, we have to essentially write the rules, and I'm hopeful and confident in talking to some of my colleagues that we could do this the right way, but it's only time will tell on that.
Yeah, because I mean, being a Floridian, if 66% of the people vote in favor of it, I mean, granted, even if the legislatures, certain parties within government aren't agreeable on the amendment, the people have spoken. The people of Florida want adult use cannabis, and it's about time that we got with the times and fully decrimmed it in the state. I mean, that to me, that's one of the most important things, constitutionally decriminalizing the plant that should be decriminalized. Yeah.
Do you think, when you say that we're in for a real battle, that even if we're Amendment 3 were to pass, like, are there any concerns that this could not go through at all? Like, how does that all work? No,
it has to.
It has to go through. Yeah. The question in really the guardrails that they put up, I don't know how much more, what more you could do than we already have a system with on the medical side that works. And my thing is a lot of the same regulations we could just flip over to the recreational side as well. But we could try to make sure that we do it the right way. And listen, at the end of the day, there's going to be a lot of people trying to influence how that bill ends up. And I know there's a lot of active players that are going to try to help out to make sure that
yeah. And I mean, they need to go ahead and just be like, if you're smoking in public, it's $500 ticket. Sorry. Don't consume in public. I consume cannabis. I enjoy consuming cannabis. I don't consume cannabis in public because I'm respectful of the people around me. There could be kids around. I'm sure there's plenty of people that don't want to smell it. Just don't consume it in public. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
But I'd be for it. $500 ticket. You smoke cannabis in public, cop's going to write you a ticket. It's a simple ticket, but you are going to pay it. And there is going to be an onerous fine with infringing on other people.
That's right. If you come out strong from the start, they can be the necessary deterrent, and I think it will be a non-issue.
Yeah.
Same.
Do you believe it's a generational thing? Because let's face it, I'm a Gen Xer. I assume you're a Gen Xer as well. Anthony's a millennial. But when you look at things and the way the perception has changed, like how long have you been in politics for? When did you begin your political career?
Well, my old football coach at Cardinal Mooney High School gave me 10 bonus points when I was a freshman to go hear Dean Quill speak at City Island Park here in Sarasota. I raised my hand, come from a non-political family, and it basically got me hooked. And I never thought I'd be on the elected side. I always thought I'd be on the support side. But, weird things end up happening, and I just keep on winning. Yeah,
but see, here you are today. But when you look back, because I know you've been a big supporter of cannabis, even from like the early days of medical back in 2016, 2017. You were the chairman of the Republican Party of Florida from 2018 to 2022. How much would you say the perception and stigma of cannabis has changed over the last 7 to 8 years in Florida?
I think it's a non-issue. It's really a non-intensity issue. So what that means, if you don't understand, like, people don't really care. Most people are probably neutral on it. They may not like the smell, but they don't really care overall one way or the other. With the medical system has come, it has worked. And my only complaint about the medical system is you're forcing people, if they don't really have an ailment, to go lie to get the product that they want to consume.
Yeah.
And that's why some people don't. That's why some people exactly. That's why some people don't go through that system and still buy it from the illicit market. So it's a but listen, most of my colleagues, even though they won't speak out on it, they don't care one way or the other. They want, listen, Florida is the land of freedom. People want to people want to do this, and if it's not going to bother anybody else, why not?
Yeah.
Well,
absolutely.
There's life before and after COVID. And I think the answer for people after COVID is move to Florida. I cannot believe how many people have moved there and what's coming with your economy. And that's not even slowing down. But you have something like this, the amount of tax revenue dollars it could really produce. It seems like things have benefited the state of Florida rather well since COVID, don't you think?
Yeah, huge win. Listen, we have political refugees, economic refugees, education refugees, health refugees that have all moved to Florida as a result of the good leadership that we've had here. And I think that's going to continue. And listen, Florida's going to continue to grow and will continue to dominate almost everything across the country.
Yeah.
Crazy that leadership is attributable to Governor DeSantis.
And a lot of other members.
And a lot of other members, but he's got his redeeming factors. I can't wait for this Amendment 3 stuff to be over, so we can get back to business.
Yeah. Last thing I'll ask you, I don't know if you pay attention to Washington all that much, but do you believe that rescheduling will happen at some point in 2025 overall for cannabis? Yeah.
I do think it's going to happen. I think listen, you got the leaders of both major political parties basically saying they'd like to see a change. And obviously the grinding, the bureaucracy that slows everything down may be part of the problem, but you have to have somebody that's willing to take that path forward. Obviously, I think President Trump has talked about that, and I don't know what he's specifically going to do on it, but I think that he understands the issue. I think Harris on the other side, at least from what I've heard the last couple of days and weeks, says that she understands it. But listen, President Trump is going to win. I think that's long overdue. And again, what you have is you have certain staff members and you have special interests that are really coming down hard because they know what's going to what will happen as a result of it changing. But yes, I do think it will change, and I think there's a good chance at changing in 2025.
Yeah. And 2 weeks from today, do you think we have Amendment 3 passed in Florida?
I think Amendment 3 will pass. I think Amendment 1 will go down. I think Amendment 4 will be close. I think Amendment 3 will be close. I think it passes. I think Amendment 4 will be close. I think it goes down, and the other ones all pass.
Lots at stake, including safe banking, lots of different scenarios. We're actually going to be diving into that a little bit later this week in another podcast. But, don't want to speculate who's going to win the election, but whoever wins, who controls the Senate. I know there's definitely some senators out of Washington that are co-sponsors of safe banking, which would be great, in the event, certain people won the presidency. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see it outside of rescheduling if some sort of movement. I think we'll have a better understanding to see whether or not SAFE does pass in 2025, but it's too early to tell right now because there's so much at stake right now over these next 2 weeks. But I won't ask you that question as to whether or not you think SAFE will pass, but I'll follow up with you maybe in 60 days on that question. How's that sound?
Perfect. Please do.
Well, listen, appreciate you taking the time. Hopefully everybody got some great feedback and understanding, but big takeaway here is that lots on the up and up. Safety comes first in the state of Florida, and you're a firm believer that Amendment 3 will pass in 2 weeks. And if that's the case, it's going to be incredible because I think it really changes even more so the stigma of cannabis across the entire country, knowing that this state could be the largest legal market in the entire world, which is exciting to see, right?
It's going to be great.
Yeah. Listen, appreciate the time. Let's keep in touch.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
Joe. Thank you very much, Senator Gruters. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Senator Gruters. Great. You had some great questions there, but
yeah, it's informative. Yeah. It's good to get a firsthand account from somebody that's actually very deep in the campaign.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But I think a lot of people will be surprised that it won't go through, but time will tell. But man, oh man, you can understand why this industry right now is just so hopeful of this happening. What happens, and I'll play the flip side, devil's advocate. If it weren't to pass, what happens to this space?
I quit.
You quit?
I quit.
Yeah,
you don't want to go over the scenario where it doesn't pass.
Yeah, I hear you.
It won't be pretty.
Yeah.
It won't be pretty for any of the companies involved. I mean, it's a giant growth catalyst that would be foregone for a while, and you probably wouldn't see adult use come into the conversation in Florida for another 4 years. You don't want Amendment 3 not to pass. This shit's over if it doesn't pass, sentiment wise. That would be the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah.
If 3 doesn't pass, the companies will probably be fine. They might be getting 280 relief very soon via Schedule 3, but if Amendment 3 doesn't pass, it would be debilitating for a lot of people that are involved in this sector.
And if it does pass, what do you think happens to the space?
Great.
Onwards and upwards, right?
It's a growth catalyst. I was talking to Toby and Sammy earlier, and a lot of the analyst estimates and a lot of the revenue estimates don't have Amendment 3 in them. In Florida, it's obviously a very big fundamental driver of growth for all of the bigger companies that are involved. Truly, Verano, Curaleaf, Air, Cresco. There's also the smaller companies in Florida that I think will also be a huge beneficiary. The Flowery, Sunburn, obviously, they're crushing it as per their OMMU numbers. Jungle Boys is down here. It'll be a rising tide that lifts all boats.
Yeah,
and sure. Florida needs to go rec because I'm sick of paying the tax for my medical card and going in and just getting it, and I got to pay basically $300 a year for the right to buy cannabis.
Yeah,
it's a little ridiculous. Granted, the medical program, that's not a knock on the medical program because it did give a lot of people access to medical cannabis upon implementation, which was net a good thing. The medical program in Florida is great. It's efficient and it's helped a lot of people, but there are a lot of people that just go in, say they're whatever, they get their prescription and they go and they're rec users.
Yeah.
That are just paying the tax for access to the plant because I refuse to buy black market cannabis.
Of course. And I think, as we said a stat before, I think almost 80 or 90% of cannabis consumers right now are in support of the legal market. And why not? When you really think about, the very great comparison to alcohol, it's, to me, I know home grow is a big importance with regards to Amendment 3, but I can assure you in due time, this is not going to be a major factor, especially with all the dispensaries we talked about in the state.
Everyone that's complained about home grow,
they
better be growing at their house right now. Or if home grow gets implemented, which it very well can be, on the back end of this, they better be growing plants in their house, because I don't believe that 50% of the people that were complaining about home grow have any interest in growing at home. Like, it's ridiculous to me. True Leaf does not give a shit if people grow at home. If home grow comes online in Florida tomorrow, I'm going to grow 3 plants in my house, 4 plants in my house as a science project because I can. I'm probably still going to go to the dispensary and buy my product that I'm actually going to consume. The MMTCs and the MSOs do not care about home grow. Home grow does not impact their business.
I hear you. Well, one thing's for sure is that there's so many things that have been blown way out of proportion. But if it gets past, as I think a lot of this goes, there's a couple of people made some great comments just about the overall smell. In Colorado, that was a concern, but not anymore. And also in Seattle, Washington. And those are arguably probably the most, biggest, I don't want to say biggest, but, when you think of Colorado and you think of cannabis or Washington, you think of obviously cannabis being a big market in each individual state. But as far as the overall smell in public buildings and stuff like that, it's something that is not even crossed their minds or is even an issue within those states anymore.
Because people use common sense. I mean, most people are decent human beings that aren't going to infringe on other people in public. Like, I will never light up a joint in public simply because I'm afraid that there's children around or there's people around that don't want to smell cannabis. And that is completely fine. You don't need to be smoking cannabis in public.
Well, we always use the comparison to alcohol a lot, and it's just like, are you going to hang out in the entrance of a grocery store and just crack open a beer? Like, no, you shouldn't be doing that. And to me, it doesn't correlate between the two. So I think it's fair that, like he said, if you're smoking cannabis in public places, they should issue out like a $500 fine. What I couldn't believe,
make it harsh,
right? 16,000 arrests for small possessions of
that's crazy. That's crazy. Florida also is a state that's notoriously over policed. And
what do you think their views are? What are their views on cannabis, like the police associations?
So from my understanding, I would be willing to bet that a vast majority of those 16,000 arrests are people that have had weed in their car or the smell of weed while they get pulled over, and then they get popped. If you get pulled over by a Florida cop, especially like BSO or some of the good old boys down here, if they smell weed in your car, they're going to fucking arrest you. It's going to happen. It's not a situation that you want to be in. But again, don't drive with weed in your car. Don't smoke weed and drive. Same thing goes for public consumption. But cops in Florida, they like to arrest people and they like to mess with people for having the smell of marijuana in their car. That I can tell you from a firsthand account. Not that it's happened to me, but I know people that it's happened to.
Anthony Gambino writes, the quality's too good at these dispensaries. No comparison unless you're a diehard cannabis grower. Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. You're not going to grow the same quality of indoor flower that the MMTCs are growing. Like, they don't care about home grow. You're definitely not going to extract it down in your own house and start to make vapes and edibles. And even if you are, go ahead and do that. You're not going to eat into their market share. I can assure you.
I was going to ask the question as to why, is he surprised that Governor DeSantis is against cannabis, knowing the support that it gets from veterans? But big difference, medical and adult use. So that wouldn't have made sense. But, I said, money talks.
Ron was a champion of the medical program. Ron brought smokable flower to the state of Florida. The medical program, when it came online in Florida, was very, very restrictive. DeSantis reformed it, and DeSantis grew it. The medical program that we have right now, which is arguably one of the best medical programs in the country, was formed under Ron DeSantis's guidance.
How much do you think? What is there? I think Dan Conformer actually wrote, as of October 18th, there was 882,000
patients.
882,438 active medical cannabis patients. I'd be curious to see what percentage of that is, like, in some cases, just faking your medical situation just to get a card to obviously buy cannabis. But I'm sure
50%. I'll say 50%.
I'm sure it's big.
I'll say over 50. Every person that I know, anecdotally, and that might be a dozen or 15 over 15 people, all have the medical cards. They all use it recreationally.
Yeah. JJ's yes. I was trying to get something at the end. Chad, let the man finish. I hear you there. Cut him off for a second. So apologies for that. Yeah, I think, for anyone that doesn't live in Florida, and I'm sure it's similar in other states as well, but how easy is it to obtain a medical card in the state of Florida, Anthony?
It's very easy. You need a pulse. And you walk in. I'm serious. Like, I've done the process twice. Tom's watching the show today. How's it going, Tom? Good to see you in the comments. No, I mean, this isn't a dig or anything, but yes, you walk in, they ask you, what is your medical ailment? You say you can't sleep or you have anxiety. Yeah. The doctor goes, check, and you're on your way. They sell Delta 8 hemp-derived gummies and hemp products in the medical marijuana card clinics.
Yep.
It's
crazy. Also, if you guys want to
don't get me wrong. I don't want to be perceived as making a joke of it, because it is very lax in its nature, but it has helped a hell of a lot of Floridians as it relates to getting access to medical marijuana. I don't think that I can't say that enough.
Well, you've got center stage. The ball's in your court, Florida, and you want to control the outcome of some of the stuff that you can't pertaining to Washington. Well, here's your chance to advance the industry. But another thing I wanted to mention as well is you want to learn about some of the best political reform as to what's going on in the cannabis space. Make sure to log on to marijuanamoment.net. Tom Angel and the crew over there, they have some really helpful and encouraging. I'm sure a lot of you guys already know that. But incredible platform with a lot of information on a day-to-day basis. But
I agree. I agree with Tom. It is onerous, and obviously you always do get bad apples in the police force that over-enforce, and that would be very onerous to somebody that is not of means. So I mean, I can respect that comment, Tom. But I do think that it needs to be onerous to deter it, or you're going to have people that abuse it. It's just naturally what happens.
Yeah. Listen, I want to thank everybody for logging on here today, because this has been great. Lots of great feedback, lots of great comments. I know some of you had asked, should we actually go live during the election on November 5th night? I would like to. I just don't know when the results actually get announced about Amendment 3. Is that like a evening of the election night around 10 o'clock, or is that not until like the following morning on a Wednesday? Because
it'll probably filter in throughout the day. It's probably going to filter in throughout the day, and then it will culminate somewhere between 9 and midnight.
9 o'clock. You want to do a live stream? Let us know. Comments.
Potentially. I think Brady was having some sort of watch party at Sunburn around the amendment.
Sounds like we should do a live stream on location.
I knew that was going to be your first inclination.
Not a bad idea. Again, people, make sure whoever's been subscribing to our Baked In newsletter, big thank you. We continue to grow at a rate that I can't believe, but it's been helpful and we love it. Growing almost 40% now in the last 3 weeks. So if you haven't done so already, make sure to scan the QR code below. I'm learning. And make sure to get all the latest information regarding the industry as a whole. Their Baked In newsletter that gets pumped out into your inbox at 8 a.m. Eastern time, Monday through Friday. So if you haven't done so already, make sure to subscribe.
By the way, very important, the Boys lawsuit is actually going to have oral arguments, from my understanding, in an appellate court December 5th. So 3 days after the ALJ hearing kicks off for rescheduling.
Yeah, I saw our Twitter account getting lit up during the live stream.
The DK interview, David Klein interview will be out tomorrow.
Yes. Good interview we had with him. But yeah, we asked some really decent questions with regards to the latest announcements, what that means, obviously what his tenure was, and knowing that he has a succession plan and how he would best describe it. And I did ask, there were some retail investors that look, it's not just Canopy, but overall the entire space, where stocks have been down tremendously over the last 5 years. And some of it has to do with the fact that, I think a lot of people, including David himself, thought legalization would have happened by 2023 when they got involved in this in 2019. But, the most important thing is, where's the company today? And if you're an investor, how do you feel confident about the company moving forward? And he will dive into that. And that's some of the stuff that we try to navigate and get a better clarification as to where Canopy moves from here. So that's going live, not live. It'll be posted tomorrow at 4:00 Eastern time. Our exclusive interview, Anthony and I, with David Klein. So hopefully you like that.
I might catch some heat from I might catch some heat for this, but I don't think you can make an argument that David is not leaving the company in better shape than when he got there. I think that is clearly evident throughout the entire enterprise. When you look at the balance sheet, when you look at their exposure to the United States, when you look at the right sizing of the Canadian business, you say what you want about Canopy, say what you want about share price, say what you want about his compensation that I know gets pelted all over Twitter, but you can't argue that the man is not leaving the business in better shape than when he got there.
Yeah. One thing's for sure. It's all about the U.S. market. And I know a lot of LPs early on wanted to definitely get into the U.S. market. Well, they've got a footprint foundation in play. So once I know that's separate with CUSA, but at the end of the day, they do have their plan in place. Now it's all about based on Washington and what gets happened there. But, we get into a lot of that stuff. You'll have a little bit of better clarification as to what we can expect for the company. And really looking back, what he thinks of the overall space as to how much it's changed in due time. So leave any comments below, any concerns. Feel free to reach out to us when we post that tomorrow. In the meantime, great job here today. We'll keep it rolling. Anthony Cogniglio is going to join us Friday morning at the live stream at 11 a.m. on the TDR Traded Black podcast. Make sure to smash that like button. Thank you, Ben. But we are going to talk about, yes, will Kamala win? Will Donald win? That's great. That's fine. But we also want to look at Congress as a whole. We're going to break down 2 or 3 different scenarios in the event Donald Trump wins and 2 scenarios of Kamala Harris wins, and things that you need to watch for as far as the structure of the Senate, the structure of the House, how that all changes, and what that potentially could do to advance some of these bills like safe banking. We'll dive into that on Friday at 11 a.m. So make sure to log on Friday. Meantime, enjoy the rest of your afternoon. And thanks again, everybody, for checking in here today. We'll see you on Friday. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching. What'd you all think the latest live stream? We are only weeks away from the big presidential election. Who's going to win? What kind of impact is it going to have on the cannabis space? We're going to know in a few weeks. So, as usual, we'd love to get your feedback. Leave lots of comments below. Make sure to smash that like button. Share this video with your network. And as usual, as I always say, if you haven't done so already, make sure to subscribe to our channel because we wouldn't be here without you. Thanks for watching, everyone.